Come here. We got more. Court did not wrap up today before we heard from one of Diddy's other former personal assistants, George Kaplan. Hello, my fam. It is Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your number one source for everything Diddy drama. The disgraced music mogul is in the second week of his federal trial where he is facing racketeering, trafficking, and prostitution charges. We've heard from many people, including one of his former assistants, as well as his ex-girlfriend, Cassie, Cassie's mother, a friend of Cassie's, and more. Just yesterday, we heard in great detail from one of the escorts hired by Diddy and Cassie. If you missed that or anything, watch my videos. I have been covering this like Diddy covers the bed sheets in the hotel rooms. I've been doing this really well. This former assistant to take the stand is named George Kaplan. He was granted immunity by the prosecution and, like the other assistant that we heard from earlier this week, he too testified the crazy long hours that Diddy would make him work. George Kaplan says that a day would typically start around 9:30 a.m. and he would make sure the chef and housekeeping staff were ready for the day. Diddy's former personal assistant said he would also make sure that his bathroom was set up with his toiletries and medications. The earliest he could ever remember finishing a day was around 5 or 6 p.m., and the latest he ever remembered finishing was around 7 a.m. George said he typically worked 80 to 100 hours a week and was paid $125,000 a year. He began working for Diddy in 2013. Remember that date. And remember that Cassie and the rapper did not break up till 2018. Kaplan began as an executive assistant to the chief operating officer. About 10 months later, he was promoted to Diddy's executive assistant. He reported to Christina Karam, Diddy's former chief of staff, who basically ran his life. That's what he testified. In 2015, he upped his security, hiring a licensed security group, which was more professional and more polished than his former longtime security guards, and seemed to have a lot of real-time training, Kaplan said today. Kaplan testified that Diddy and he would exchange texts, calls, and emails multiple times a day about what he needed, which could include clothing or potentially food from somewhere, or drugs, or liquor, or an iPad, or a speaker. And that is why he was granted immunity, because he obtained substances for Diddy. Illegal. So what kind of a boss was he? Awful. Kaplan says that Diddy would threaten to fire him almost monthly. Combs would remark that he wanted to be surrounded by the best, and those around him at the time were not performing at that level. Sometimes Diddy was angry, and other times motivational, Kaplan testified. During his first week working for Combs, he assigned Kaplan to find a 1-gallon BPA-free bottle at Whole Foods. The store didn't have it, so he brought back 2 half-gallon bottles instead. Combs angrily told him he did not bring him what he asked for. He was very close to my face, Kaplan said. Over water bottles. Like the other assistant that we heard from, Kaplan also testified that he would travel with Diddy and set up the hotel rooms just how he liked them. Kaplan told the jury that he went with Combs to various destinations, including New York, Miami, Atlanta, D.C., and Orlando. He would either fly on Diddy's private jet with him or in advance on a commercial flight to ensure that his lodgings were set up properly. Kaplan testified that the first time he was told to set up a hotel room for Diddy, he was given a bag and told to unpack it. The bag had clothes, a speaker, candles, liquor, baby oil, and Astroglide in it. I have lost track at how many witnesses have testified to baby oil. It's Diddy on trial with very special guest star, Baby Oil. After that first time, he said that he would often buy the same supplies with his corporate credit card. He said Combs or Christina Coram, the former chief of staff, would usually instruct him to set up a hotel room. The rooms were usually reserved under the name Frank Black, which was a reference to the late rapper and Bad Boy Records artist Notorious B.I.G., whose nickname was Frank White. And yes, part of George Kaplan's job was also cleaning up after Diddy. Ew. He got all freaky at the freak off, and then you have to make sure to pick up the empty bottles of lube and baby oil and spooge all over the place. Ugh. Kaplan said he came to understand part of his role was protecting Diddy's image. Quote, protecting him and protecting his public image was very important, and that was something I was very keen on doing. Typically, there'd be Gatorade bottles, liquor bottles, and baby oil strewn around the hotel room after he left. On one occasion, he cleared up a brown crystallized powder off a countertop. Kaplan didn't know what it was, but he cleaned it up just in case. Kaplan testified about times he said he picked up drugs for Diddy. He said that Combs would always give him cash and a number to call, and then Kaplan would arrange to pick them up. He would pick up Molly and other substances. He wasn't sure what because he didn't have them tested. Diddy was also very specific with how he liked his toiletries set up. They had to be arranged in a specific way and all facing forward, of course. The whole process would typically take George Kaplan about 30 minutes, he said. He testified that Diddy would travel with a bag that had tons of different medications in it, as well as drugs. Diddy also demanded candles, so he would travel with them and hotel rooms would be set up with them because lighting was very important. It would not surprise me if we're hearing later on in the trial from Christina Coram, his former chief of staff. She probably is working on a plea deal right now with prosecutors. And that was all that we got from George Kaplan today. Prosecutors will pick back up with him tomorrow morning. Then the defense will get their turn, and court learned that a total of 5 witnesses will be called tomorrow. We're going to have a very busy day, y'all. In addition to Kaplan, we're going to hear from Kid Cudi. A big update. Cudi was tentatively scheduled to show up today, but now we've learned instead of today, he will be there tomorrow. And who the other 3 witnesses are, we don't know yet, but I will let you know as soon as we know, and I will tell you everything that is worthy of knowing from the Diddy trial, because I am your friend, Perez, the queen of all media, the original influencer, and your #1 source for everything Diddy drama. So, George Kaplan, short but eventful. Let's discuss everything that we learned in the comments section. And until I see you again, thank you for your support.